A warm welcome from New York, everyone, on this final day of the World Chess Championship 2016. I hope you are ready for one of the most tense and dramatic days in chess history. My name is Knut Skeie Solberg. I will be your tiebreak host. And my tiebreak expert is Judit Polgar.
Hi.
Welcome. To what extent do even you, with your experience, feel that this is a special day for chess?
Well, it's absolutely very special because, first of all, it's Magnus's birthday, so it's going to be memorable in all ways. And we can say that by end of the day, we are going to know who is the world champion. Is it going to be Magnus staying and keeping his crown, or we're going to see another happiest person on earth? And it will be called Sergei Karjakin. And of course, we had a lot of drama, and then it's just coming, the most of it, today.
Kaja, how do you think this tension will affect our social media?
Well, I hope there's going to be a lot of comments for us today. I do understand if people will be busy actually watching the game because it's they start off with Rapid, and Rapid can eventually go really fast, so they will be busy watching it. But I do hope in the meantime, there's 10 minutes break between each Rapid game. I hope we get a lot of comments and stuff from the viewers then.
And Peter Daggers from chess.com, our opening expert today, will have many openings.
Yeah, minimum 3 actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be decided after 3 rapid games. It can also last a lot longer, of course. So yeah, we'll see.
Judith, it seems like both of the players really wanted this playoff. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think in the beginning, of course, Karjakin knew that he's the underdog in this match, and if he reaches 6-6, then he's increasing his chances to become a world champion. And I think, actually, for sure, it was not Magnus's dream to get 6-6 and go all the way to the playoff. But after game 8, which was a horror for him, and he knew that he's almost losing the crown, taking away out of his hand. But after that, of course, it was very clear that his dream was to get here to play a playoff. And though I'm not sure if he's not going to be punished, because what he did in Game 7, that he was not really focusing to play a long game and to play it out and potentially win, not talking about yesterday's or day before yesterday's game in Game 12, because it seems like he's trying to put all his energy and focus on this playoff, and actually it can backfire again.
Kaja, do we have anything at all so far on the social media? And what is the message for the remainder of the day?
Yes, people are already writing to us on our Twitter, #WorldChess2016. That's the hashtag you need to use on Twitter. A lot of birthday wishes for Magnus Carlsen. Chess-Base India is following us, saying, "Happy birthday to Magnus Carlsen. Will this be the best or the worst birthday ever?" And I guess that's the big question for him. Also use our Facebook page, World Chess. And I really want to ask today, just predictions. I want to know who people think will be the winner. Is it Magnus? Is he going to keep his crown? Or will Karjakin, in this very exciting finishing day, be able to actually get that crown from the Norwegian?
Peter Daggers, what's your prediction? Will it be a happy birthday for Carlsen?
I will make a bold one. I will actually predict Sergei Karjakin. And the reason is that I think so far he has shown the strongest nerves. I feel that, especially that decision in Game 12, it's not a confident Magnus Carlsen to go for a game like that. By the way, I quickly want to mention the stats. Carlsen is in Rapid world number 1 at the moment. Karjakin would be number 3 in the world. It's a very tense match. He would be number 3 if he wasn't inactive in Rapid. So he doesn't have a Rapid rating at the moment, but he would be on 28-18 in Rapid. And I was also going to mention that in the 8 games of Rapid they ever played in their lives, it's actually a tie. They played 4-4 in their Rapid games before. So especially the first 4 games in this match is again going to be very close. But yeah, a bold one. I'm actually going for Sergei.
And they all ended decided? There were no draws?
No, a couple of draws and a couple of wins, of course, yeah. Actually, in Blitz, Magnus has an 8.5, 3.5 huge overscore. So it might be that Magnus is actually going for that 2-2 also in the first 4 games, because he has reason to be confident to win that Blitz section, actually. But he needs to deal with his nerves first in the Rapids.
This sure will be exciting. But first, let's take a recap on the whole exciting match.
World Chess Championship.
Karjakin, as World Chess spokesperson Andrew Ruy will challenge reigning world champ 25.
It's fun to play rapid chess, so no reason not to feel good.
Well, I didn't think too much about the tiebreaks because, I mean, when you have to play 12 classical games, you're preparing. It's maybe a little bit too deep to think about the tiebreak before the match, but now, yes, I will think.
And this scoreboard shows us why we will have a tiebreak today. Magnus Carlsen 6, Sergei Karjakin 6. And Judith, isn't it a great advantage for Magnus Carlsen that he is rated the #1 rapid player in the world?
He knows it, and all of us knows it, that he's extremely good in all forms of chess, all time control. He was world champion in classical chess, in rapid, in blitz. But he also knows it, we all know it, that when it gets to a shorter time control, it can go out of your hand. You can lose control easier. And of course, it is very important what kind of day you're having. You have to have your optimism, your balance, your focus, your presence, your preparation. You have to be very flexible in realizing the chances, and also after every game, it will be a completely different psychological situation. So you have to be extremely resilient and very much have to feel the moment when is your chance and really grab it. I mean, now he will definitely not be able to afford miss his chances.
What does the match in total tell us about the mental state of the two players?
It was interesting to see after game 12 that I had the feeling that actually by their expression on their face that they both felt like they are the world champions, I think. Somehow they were both very happy that this tension they were relieved that it's 6-6 now, and then we move on to playoff. But I think the last 2 days after the press conference, they both went back to their rooms and they were walking, relaxing, focusing, get the mental prepared for the playoff. And I'm pretty sure both players are very nervous. I have the feeling that, of course, Magnus is feeling more pressure, because I believe simply that psychologically Sergei was much better, much stronger in this match. He did not lose control the way Magnus did, for example, in Game 8.
Jukka, you followed Magnus for many years. What was your thoughts after Game 8?
When he lost?
Yeah.
Well, we had that initial reaction by him from storming out of the press conference. He was obviously very disappointed and angry with himself. And he gets angry with himself when he plays bad. But this time, playing bad also had a really big effect on the World Chess Championship. And it was strange to see him in that mental stage where he actually had to start hunting for the title, never having to do that before. Now he was maybe not psychologically as strong as Karjakin, and he had to hunt for the title. And that was interesting to see. And you saw that when he won that Game 10 as well, how happy he was. We said we'd never seen him that happy. And I think that was a sign of relief, because he was stressed out before that game, I think.
And we've seen Magnus Carlsen, like here in Berlin, that he really gets mad. And this is Blitz in Berlin, so we might see, Judith, scenes like this today.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we can see anything, everything, all kind of blunders or great games, also great moments. of course, in the shorter the game it gets, the more tension the players have, and of course, right after the game, they will be expressing it also in a much more lively way. And of course, you can't help it. I think this is why for chess it is very difficult when you play a long game. Most of the time, you have time to kind of get used to it, that you're going to lose the game or you're going to win the game. But when we see a rapid game, even when we see a blitz game, or at the end it can be extremely fast, then really it comes out. And right after you blunder something, so it can really be in a second, you blunder and you can be really, really mad at yourself and you express it also. It depends on the character.
And what about Sergei Karjakin now? He really is in a good position, isn't he?
He's in a great situation. I think before the match he would have been kind of happy to have this score, 6-6. I think he would have think that this is a pretty big step in the road to become a world champion. And the most important part, I think, for him to make 6-6, that Magnus himself got frustrated during the match, and he said it, it's going to be frustration for the later games also. And this is the biggest danger for Magnus, that how much he can cope with the situation himself, and it's not only who is Sergei as an opponent. And for Sergei, of course, he believes in himself. He knows also that he's one of the best rapid player in the world. He has great knowledge, great nerves. And I think he also has a pretty good team who gives all the support for him as well. Not only Magnus has a great team, but I think he's very focused and very concentrated, and somehow he feels that timing in his life, somehow it's happening right.
Kaya, do we have any predictions already?
Yeah, just like Judith and Peter, actually, people are quite optimistic for Sergei Karjakin's chances. We have Neil Lassett, one of them, saying Sergei to win with a defense of the universe, because his defense have obviously been amazing. And we also have a really interesting tweet here by Uygar Polat. This is kind of cool. He says, I would like to think both players stared at this tweet for a long time last night. And he's mentioning a tweet Magnus Carlsen wrote on September 15th, 2015. And Magnus wrote this: Sergei Karjakin shows how to win on demand. Class.
Ah.
So maybe he can do that today as well. Magnus already predicted.
Well, it is interesting that actually Magnus was one of the, well, maybe not the only, but the most serious about it when he's saying remarks about Karjakin's achievements in the last year or two, that he was really serious about, and he thought about his play. And maybe this is also kind of a problem that he has to deal with, that he knows it in his back of his mind, that Sergei is a very, very difficult opponent for him.
We've been talking a lot about the mental game of chess. How much of a mental game do you think a tiebreak is?
The tiebreak is a different sport, I must say. So now they really have to forget about what they were doing in the last 2.5 weeks, because it's completely different preparation. Even we can talk about different preparation, not only mentally, but also chess-wise. I mean, some of the top players, they have different repertoire for classical games and for rapid game, even for blitz game, because of course how it gets shorter time control, you can make riskier moves, or you believe that the surprise, for example, it has a great value. And we can easily see different openings, even especially in blitz, but even now.
Do you think this will be decided during the rapid, or do you think we will see blitz today?
I wish it will be blitz in some ways, because the fun continues, but I have a belief that out of 4 games we're going to have the world champion.
But why do you want to see blitz?
Well, the shorter the time control we go to, it's going to be more fire, more blood, more intensity, more everything which concentrates all of the things which we were talking in the last 3 weeks about. The psychology, the chess moves, the blunders, the tension, the expressions, the emotions, all this will be so concentrated. And of course, we are getting, the stake is very high. And with each game, we know that we get closer to the final result. And this is what makes this day so special in some ways, in many ways. But generally, I mean, by the time we finish the last game, we are going to have a world champion. And it was not the same in game 12. In game 12, we knew that it can be the decisive game, but it can be also a draw in one way or another. And then we are going to looking forward to the playoff. And today is the day when both player knows that they can have a different kind of good night's sleep or sleep at all because of happiness or disappointment.
Because now there's no possibility of postponing the decision anymore.
No way. And actually, this is an important moment you're saying, because I felt it that with Magnus, he was in some stages of the match. He was trying to postpone it as further as possible. And of course, he has his reasons for different things, instability, no self-confidence so much, a little bit afraid, whatever. But really, today is the day. No matter what happens, no matter if they want to make a short draw, long draw, whatever, for sure, the latest, it's going to be the 15th game of the day. That's the maximum they can play. And then for sure, we are going to have a world champion.
Is it possible to sense on the social media, Kai, if the viewers want Blitz?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. I think everyone wants Blitz. It's going to be hard to watch because that will be exciting, but I think everybody who loves chess would like to see that because that would be exciting. We have a question for you here now, Judith, from Kashal Kal. He's writing, as we know, Magnus is a huge spokesperson and figure to promote chess. I would like to know, what does it mean for chess as a game if Karjakin wins? Would it be a positive or negative effect to World of Chess?
I believe that generally whoever is a world champion, whatever changes we have, for sure it brings positive and negative things. It just gives freshness to the game. Though Karjakin, well, actually we have the players.
Have the players, and and they both came at the same time, only 2 minutes before the start of game. What does that tell us, Judith? The last games, they've been here for like 4 or 5 minutes before.
Well, they know whatever minutes they are going to spend there, it's going to be sometimes, they will have the feeling it's endless.
How will these games actually look, Judith, the rapid games? How fast will they actually play in the beginning here?
I have the feeling that they will pretty much blitz out the moves in the opening phase of the game, the first 5-6 move for sure, then maybe there is a small unexpected move or something, then one of them will stop for a short time. But generally, I think the first 10-15 moves will be very fast. It also depends what opening we are going to have. And then at some point, probably when one of the players feels that it's the critical point or this is something to really focus on to how to decide what strategy to make, then we can expect maybe one point of the game to spend 5 or even 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
On one move, but that means that it has to be very crucial or very concrete.
The opening is getting closer, Judith, and what kind of opening do you expect here?
I think in the first game, Karjakin will be playing e4. That's my way of thinking, and I think because Karjakin feels it, that psychologically somehow he's more stable, or that's what he showed during the match. Maybe he's also going to play for the nerves of Magnus, that the closer we get, we keep the tension with a draw, the more nervous Magnus can get. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, we also have to say that by reaching the rapid playoff, in rapid games there is a very big jump that also, first of all, Black is winning more games also than in classical game. And also we can say that we have
e4.
We have less draws usually also. e4.
As you said, Judith.
Yeah, this is kind of the safe way of making the first rapid game. e5 is just in the beginning. We had all the games, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6. Everything what we are expecting. Bishop a4, it's a Ruy Lopez, knight f6, castle, bishop e7. If they choose a line, it can even go to, is the d3, is the solid way of playing. It was played by Karjakin during the match twice. a3, castle, knight c3. So one game, Carlsen played knight a5. It was, I think, game 5. And actually, in other game, Black played bishop e6, and now is the third move which Magnus is playing already in this match, and he played knight b8. It's not that he wants to put his pieces back to the basic position of the board, but later on he wants to regroup his knight to d7. Black will be putting his bishop on b7 and will be playing c5 most likely.
And now, Judith, we're happy to welcome the Blitz beast, Maximum Dlugi, to the studio. And what does this opening tell you?
Well, actually, this opening tells me that we can learn a little bit about knights, because knights are the only pieces that can improve by going backwards. And because sometimes when some of my students move their pieces back to the original square, I say, what are you doing? You're setting up for the next game? And they start laughing. But in this case, the maneuver knight b8 later to go to d7 is actually a very standard maneuver to improve the knight from where to a place where from where it will strike c5 and e5 and perhaps b6 and control a lot of important squares in the board. On c6, it's blocking the c pawn, blocking the bishop, so it's not actually doing so well. But again, you know, these guys have tried every variation of the Ruy Lopez, and they know it so well that nothing here, I think, presents any kind of a big surprise. But later on, we'll see some interesting chess. And obviously, with the speed that they have to now show, there will be more mistakes, and so a lot more opportunities for one of them to strike and win the game.
And now, Judith, Sergei Karjakin is going up towards 2 minutes of thinking. And what is on his mind now, you think?
Well, this is exactly what I meant, that in the first few moves they can be blitzing out until a moment a surprise comes to one of the opponent. And for Karjakin, of course, it was a new move, as it was knight a5 and bishop e6 played before by Magnus during the match. And, well, of course, he's going to spend a few minutes just to realize what Magnus has in his mind, whether did he choose this just to make a surprise for him, or also maybe he's more optimistic. And already in a rapid game, I mean, he's more optimistic to win a game also with Black. And so he has to a bit of reorganize his brain. He played knight e2, and Black played immediately c5, as after going back with the knight, it was an obvious continuation that either immediately or in a later stage, but c5 will be happening in the game.
Yeah, you could say that, you know, both of the knights, the knight on c6 and the knight on c3, were in the way of the pawns, the c2 pawns and the c7 pawns, and so basically they've done roughly the same kind of thing. They've both moved their knights away so that the pawns can start moving and attack the center. So white can now play c3, or maybe even at some point c4, of course not here, but maybe later. And white has regrouped the knight to g3 from where it stands looking at the king side and hoping to strike at some point.
Yeah, and after knight c6, we have this move c3. Well, firstly, actually, knight d4 was kind of planned possibly from Black, and anyway, in this system, c3 is a very good move, covering the d4 square and keeping an option anytime to play d4 for white, being more active and gain a bit of space.
And Magnus did now leave the table. I guess we will see less of that in rapid.
Oh, yeah.
In regular.
Well, it might even mean that he's pretty nervous, because if you're very nervous, but okay, he had this habit when he was a kid. I mean, I call back my favorite video when he was 13 playing with Kasparov for the first time, I think, a rapid game, and then he was just making a move, stood up, looking around. When Kasparov was making his move, he just sat on the side, he made his move and left the board. So it can be also, of course, a psychological moment.
But look, Magnus really knows what he's doing, it seems. He's definitely looked at this continuation, because he played rook b8 quite quickly.
Well, and of course, it's when we go to shorter time control, of course, intuition comes into the picture more actively. That's why the players have to feel very good during the day, and they had to have a good sleep, so their intuition will not cheat them.
Yeah, I had an interesting discussion yesterday. Jan Nepomniachtchi, who's number 4 in the world on Blitz and Rapid, visited my school yesterday, and we played some Blitz, and he asked me why I'm not playing in Qatar in the World Blitz and Rapid Championships this year. And I said, well, I didn't do so well in Berlin last time it was there, and I don't really feel like I'm ready to play. and he said, but you should just move fast. Just move fast. Just use your intuition. Just play fast. That's all you need to do. And this is maybe what we're going to see today. We're just going to see some, I mean, this was advice from a player who was once #1 in the world in Blitz and Rapid. And so Jan says, just play fast. Maybe that's what, in fact, we just saw just 2 moves as I was talking.
Yeah.
H3 and A5. And
Yeah, White played H3 to stop Bishop G4, as after D4 it would be some difficulty for White after C takes. After D4, Black would be taking on D4, and after Bishop C takes D4, Bishop G4 would be very unpleasant, the pin, and put pressure on the D4 square. So that's the reason White played H3, and also it's like in almost 100% of the games in this system, White is playing H3, and Black instantly played A5. So it shows that Magnus is very optimistic. He wants to really put a lot of pressure on the queen side. He also, of course, wants to develop his pieces, but probably it will take time, and he'll think it over twice whether he's going to play Bishop E6. Probably he's looking for a good moment. And also possibly he wants to go A4 first, push the B3 bishop back, gain a tempo, and only after that to play Bishop E6.
And then he'll be controlling the B3 square, of course.
I mean, these games are very solid, but it can easily be going to any result. It can be a draw, but it can easily be that it's going to be decided Black wins or White wins. It's more or less they have nearly same chances.
But Max, in general, how do we recognize a good rapid player?
I think by the solidity of his results. You know, there are a lot of players, for example, they can play a really good rapid tournament. But for example, there are some that you just know they will always do reasonably well, even if they're not in the top 10 in the world. For example, Alexei Dreyev comes to mind, a former candidate for the World Championship, but you know he's about my age, maybe a little younger, and yet every time he plays in a major rapid or blitz tournament, he does reasonably well. He always comes in top 10, 15 in the world, no matter what the competition is. He's very well prepared in openings. He's got excellent technique, very good speed, good rhythm. And really, rhythm is a very important thing in rapid and blitz, because you need to have a certain speed with which you continuously produce reasonable moves. You don't have to make the best moves. It's not expected of you to create the most brilliant game ever played in a 30-minute encounter. But if you're playing reasonably good moves that are in the top 5 of, let's say, the top engines all the time, you'll be doing quite well over a long haul. And I think this is what's happening here. Of course, Magnus understands the plan. He's worked at it while preparing knight b8, that he's going to play a5, b4, and somehow this is a good idea. Not
well,
sure.
This was, I think, an important moment for Karjakin by playing a4 in the previous move, because he really didn't want to give the opportunity for Black to play a4 himself and put pressure and gain space. And Black played b4, which after White will have all kind of moves to play knight d2 and controlling the White squares, which can be very useful later on. Possibly White can be playing bishop c4 also to control the square b5 with the bishop. And in these systems, of course, it is very important, the White squares, whether White will be able to control it, possibly go rook e1 and come back with the knight, eventually back to d5, or think of something else. Also, this is why White will be possibly playing bishop g5 later, exchanging the knight, so the White square will be weaker for Black.
Karjakin is already on 19, while Magnus is nearly 26. What does that tell us?
This can be very important. At the moment, it's not something significant, which can cause problem for White. But if this can be increased by Magnus, then it can be good. And there is 2 reasons why Magnus can be playing fast. First of all, because he's very confident and he knows what he's doing. But on the other hand, you can be playing fast also because you're extremely impatient and nervous. So we'll see how it will turn.
But the third, there's a third reason, which is what Jan Nepomniachtchi said: just play fast. Just play fast. Now, I mean, a move that looks reasonable from White's point of view strategically is knight d2, right? To try to move the knight to c4, e3, something. But then maybe Black can strike with d5. So White has to keep in mind that just moving the pieces around, you have to calculate always the ramifications of what if Black creates something in the center. And
And
this
what-
creates
and-
some pressure on the clock.
And it also many times happens, and this dynamic has to be felt with this, in this kind of position very much, that with your last move or with your next move, you're creating new opportunities for your opponent. So this is why they have to
Karjakin
be
made his
extremely alert. Rook e1. I think this move is played against the potential d5 for later.
I would play that move. That was my move.
Yeah, this is
I was
again
gonna
a very classical move
Absolutely.
like h3.
Well, also
play
to
rook e1.
maybe prepare a move like knight d2.
And also just to gain time, and you have to play fast, and you play
Yeah,
something
rook e1
which can be
a bad
useful.
move. It puts a rook onto where things will eventually happen. Therefore, again, there's a concept in psychology which is called satisficing. Not satisfying, but satisficing. It's an interesting concept. The idea is just play a good enough move, make a good enough decision, but don't spend too much time on it. And this is exactly how Blitz and Rapid should be played. You should just play a good move, a solid move that you know will slightly improve your position. Maybe it's not the best move. Maybe there's a shot that could win, but it's okay. You can't spend the time. You can't afford to risk spending 10 minutes to find a shot. Let's say White maybe could have played d4 or something. I don't know. Something it's very, very crazy and exciting and complicated. But to calculate something like that would eventually cost you a lot of time. And if you're wrong, you're going to lose.
But isn't that a point in Rapid and Blitz also to not always play the best moves so that you can surprise your opponent and make him spend more time to think about your move?
Yes. In fact, I teach my students when your opponent moves, he's expecting you to make a certain move with a certain piece of it. Start by looking at moves with other pieces. That's the surprising factor. And this is how, for example, in Blitz, very important, the in-between moves, the so-called moves in German. There's this even term for it called Zwischenzugs, in-between moves. And you make those moves, and they surprise your opponent because there's always this automatic thinking. If I go here, he takes this. If I take this, he takes that. Stop, switch it off, try to find a different kind of move. That will surprise your opponent, and of course, in a Blitz game, that will take some time off his clock.
Well, Magnus's last move did not surprise Sergey, I think. He played bishop e6.
Finally, bishop e6, right?
Which is a very natural move, exchanging the white square bishop.
But now White can trade and play d4, and maybe that's something, right?
Well, actually, it's hard to imagine what else can White do with an exchange, because otherwise bishop takes b3, and then b takes c3 can be very strong from Black's side. So there's not much to be done.
What happens if we take and
White.
play d4? Is White maybe a little better there? Looks a little like something.
Yeah, takes, and d4 is a way of playing it, but probably Black is having just a very stable game. Actually, maybe Black is going to take on c3 first,
Yeah, on
takes
the b
and
file, of
taking on d4, and then actually the rook on b4 can be standing very active. Actually, maybe Black would be just taking, possibly grabbing everything on d4, and then rook b4, for example. And then later Black would be coming queen b6. So Black has a pretty active game here.
Yeah, slightly worse pawn structure, but much more active pieces. So interesting. Interesting. I mean, this is the kind of thing that now...
In other hand, White doesn't really want to take on e6. It's something you would want to be avoiding. But to play bishop c2, it's possible. And after b3, to go back all to b1. But a rook on a1... It's hard to imagine when it will be coming out, and if, let's say, the rook would be on f1, things would be fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
But it will. it's a hard move to regroup.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, Scotticus on our hash World Chess 2016 is saying that Carlsen is playing aggressive. Do you guys agree on that?
Well, I wouldn't say he plays so aggressive. I would say more that he wants to be very active in the game. He didn't make any risks so far. He's just playing very healthy this game. And I think it is also important to notice that actually for Black, I think, it was easier to play it up to this point because he didn't really have to make a choice. He pushed his pawns on the queen side, and for example, White had to make a decision to play a4 or let Black to play a4. And I think this can be a very important element in Blitz or Rapid, that to pick such a positions that it's easier to play, it's easier to make pattern moves and that you know the plans of it. And so far, I think it was easier to play it with black.
Karjakin made his move
that's a
after
very
3
interesting
minutes.
move. Bishop c4.
Bishop c4. Actually, I thought about it for a second, but somehow
move,
it was
right?
hard to believe.
It's the kind of move your opponent does not expect. Bishop c4, you kind of, it's a nuance. You're saying,
Actually, I
well,
think Magnus was expecting this because
maybe.
probably he would be playing that.
he would play a move like that quickly, but Sergey
Yeah, because it's important to keep the tension, that he really didn't want to give up, that, okay, Magnus wants to exchange and then I have to exchange it myself. So they want to keep the tension that white doesn't want to grab the e6 pawn to strengthen black's center. And but on the other hand, white would be kind of very happy if black would be taking bishop c4 dc, and mainly the reason is because knight to f5 can be coming, I think, in a later stage.
Just to mention, Judith, the c4 move changed the computers from a slight advantage for Magnus to a slight advantage for Karjakin. But we're early in the game, but I'm just telling.
Well, I think it was a good move, but I'm not sure I would say that white is clearly better.
No, it's just
something.
a slight advantage.
Yeah, well, this game will be a very complicated game.
Should black prepare d5 with queen c7, or?
I think he can go queen c8. That this would
Queen
be a
c8.
very logical move, I think, because then bishop b5 is not something threatening too much, or possibly queen d7. D5, I'm not sure black will be able to play
Ever,
easily.
right?
Because actually after queen c7, I think possibly white could go knight f5.
Already.
Or even to play knight g5. Actually, this can be
knight g5.
white's idea to force
Play knight
black to
g5.
play, to exchange the bishop on c4. And then it's true that white has a double pawn structure here, but on the other hand, the c3 pawn is extremely important to defend the d4 square, or after b takes c3, b takes c3. It is extremely good covering two very important squares. And actually, at the moment, the c4 pawn is not weak because it can't be attacked so easily at the
Look
moment.
at this. He heard you, Judith. He heard
Yeah, I
you. Knight g5
shouldn't
threat,
speak so
and
loud.
he just stopped it. There you go.
Yeah, so after bishop c4, h6, really in order to stop any kind of bishop or knight g5.
But you have to realize the pressure on the players is enormous.
Yeah.
Sergey's at 15 minutes. I mean, that's not a lot of time to really make decisions on the, in the sense that you're trying to become world champion, right? And you have 15 minutes to make that work. That's a lot of pressure. So
And he really doesn't want to lose this first game with white pieces,
no,
right?
no, of course not. But I mean, he's also trying to put the pressure. It's a great kind of thing. You're trying to put some pressure, but at the same time, you don't want to get yourself into a bad position. I think I have a theory that in a, let's say, a 5-minute game, which I don't know if we'll see today, any 5-minute games, but if we will, that in a 5-minute game, each minute is almost worth a pawn. So if you're getting to if you're talking about like a 15 to 22 minutes advantage, that's already worth something for Magnus. So if the position is even, 50-50, it's the computer right now shows us, which I think Judith and I pretty much believe is about right, then the advantage that Magnus has on the clock is something that should put him probably closer to 55% at this point.
Yeah, because it's getting close to 10-minute difference.
But again, actually, Sergey has something really to think of. What is his plan going to be? Because now it's interesting that if white knight from f3 would be going away, let's say to h2, and trying to make similar plans what he had in one of the games, knight g4, then already probably d5 is something to think of, because the knight left the e5 pawn to attack. But also white has an interesting idea, which is kind of surprising, to play bishop b5, and let's say black would be attacking the bishop, possibly to play c4. So black would be never in this game be able to play d5.
Yeah.
He did
But-
play a bishop.
Interesting. But
He played with the
bishop
other
d3.
bishop,
Does
yeah.
that
he played,
allow d5? Is d5 now a...
yeah, because
something
now
worth-
there is
worth
blocking the rook on the e file, and d5 is somehow kind of a very logical continuation, but maybe
there's
concretely
something
bishop
bishop
b5.
d5, yeah?
And then the e5 pawn can get in
But
trouble.
c3 is also, but so it's complicated.
Because after d4, white would be either taking or just go back bishop d2.
The Norwegian broadcasters and newspapers now says that this is getting really dramatic for Karjakin.
Well, it's not so bad yet.
A
He's
little
under
early.
15 minutes.
A little-
That's true.
I mean, don't forget, they also get an additional few seconds after each move. What is it?
10 seconds.
10, right? So it's that's something. It's not much, but it's something.
It can especially be interesting once one of the player has little time, and if Magnus will be able not only to play good moves, but surprising tactical ideas, when really who is having short on time, he can have a lot of trouble calculating and being really messy, get confused, and so on. So that's one of the way to try to make some moves with black and try to put Karjakin to lose his time and think a lot, and then to do some action when he has very short
Can we
time.
actually see them lose on time, that the clock hits 0 for one of the players? That happens
Well,
in
actually,
Rapid?
it happened with Magnus in a classical game. Actually, in Norway, which
true.
I'm pretty sure it was not very nice to be around him after that game, because that was something unbelievable in a winning position to lose on time.
But it was a mistake, though.
Yes.
Because he didn't know the rules.
Well,
was a mistake.
no matter what kind of mistake, you
Yeah.
lose the game in a winning
That was so
position.
shocking
that's-
But
he
he
was-
usually wouldn't lose on time there.
Yes,
Yeah.
but he was not the only player who lost on time. I mean, Ivanchuk and there are other players who were in big time trouble and simply lost on time. But I never lost on time, I think. Well, at least for not in a winning position, for sure.
I lost on time in the Blitz game once. It was an actually Armageddon game against, I think he was number 4 in the world at the time, Alexander Morozevich. We each won our section of the Blitz tournament, and then we had to play to who wins the tournament, and then we split, and then we had an Armageddon game. I was up, all I needed was to draw, and I was doing great. I was up in exchange, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, I can't lose this. And I'm just moving, absolutely not thinking about the clock. I wasn't playing chess much those days. And then he goes flag, and I'm like, what? And I look like I'm at 0. So it's actually very dangerous sometimes to forget.
This, Judith, is the first time Magnus is using over
time.
3 minutes now, using his, and there he made a move.
There he goes.
Yeah.
Queen c8. The ultimate prophylactics. Right?
Yes, because the queen on c8 actually stands very good.
Yeah.
It stands probably the best place. For some reason, queen on d7 is not so well placed. And also, sometimes it's important that even the a6 square is covered. For example, his plan can be sometimes to take on c4, and after d takes c4, not only queen e6, but also from queen a6, it's an option to attack the c4. Just in case to have the queen on the c line, it can be simply better
Also, rook
placed.
d8 is a stronger idea now.
Yes,
because
rook
the
d8
rook
is
not,
something to be
blocked by
thinking
the
of.
queen. So yeah.
We have an interesting tweet by Olympu Urkan, and it's a video of Magnus from before the game started today. And it looks like Magnus is meditating. He's sitting in his chair for several seconds with his eyes closed, looking like he's focusing. And then it's about to start, and he leans forward and he's ready.
Meditation is very important. I
Yeah.
think, yeah. I had a great conversation with Josh Waiskin, who actually trains. I'm sure he mentioned when he was here.
Yeah.
Some top performers in different industries and stuff. How to meditate correctly, and meditation. I was meditating when I was playing chess. I remember basically, locking my head with my hands and just trying to take all thoughts out and just clean my head, and so I could play. And very important to really clear the thoughts and begin afresh.
We actually had an experiment when we went to Norway Chess. There's this exhibition where you can actually check who has the least thoughts in their head. For chess players, that's important to kind of rule out. So there was a ball in the middle, and they had some tapes to their head, and the player who thought the least, who could just be blank, won. The ball would go over to the other side, and Magnus won every single one of those games.
I saw those videos.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah.
We have a move, queen
Yeah.
e2.
Queen into
Actually, I have the feeling that Magnus's strategy is just play healthy chess in a fast mode.
Yeah. That's the best.
Yeah.
That's the best. Of course, he worked with Jan Nepomniachtchi, so Jan must have told him that. Same advice he gave me yesterday. Go to Qatar and play quickly. Okay.
Yeah, now it's a big question whether at which point Black will decide to take on c4.
Do you think he's not going to go for d5 at all?
Well, I don't know if, let's say, Black would play d5 now.
Yes,
He played rook d8.
He's
Yeah, he's
preparing it a
making
bit.
some preparational moves. Just
So the
in
bishop
case.
can come back to f8 if necessary and stuff like that. So
Yeah, but eventually I would love to see white knight coming to h4, which is at the moment I think it's not really working because of knight e4. But once the black bishop would be going away to f8, then immediately I would jump to h4 and go to f5, which is always much more stronger when the pawn on h6 is already played by black, because it will practically, he can never play g6, kicking out my knight from f5.
yeah, so that's.
So white also has to keep the tension a bit.
So should white just play rook d1 maybe?
Well, rook d1, rook c1 might be also
C1
interesting
to
in order that one day to play d4, and if they are grabbing on
takes b
d4.
and just I don't know. C takes b gives away the d4 square. That's not.
But in these positions, one of the most difficult to decide what do you do with your rook on a1.
Yeah.
Which will be the moment whether it's good, the best place in d1, c1, or b1, because actually any of the lines can be opened.
And now Karjakin see the 10-minute mark here, so we're getting closer.
By the way, I have a little trick question for Judith.
Yeah.
I ask it of all the kids that want to improve in Blitz, and the question goes like this: what is the only way not to lose in Blitz?
To play fast? I don't know. To play good moves.
What's the only way not to lose on time in Blitz?
To make moves all the time, non-stop.
No, that's not the right
To
answer.
resign in time.
No. The answer I give is play faster than your opponent.
Yeah.
If you're playing fast, then you cannot lose on time. So this is, I think, what Magnus's strategy is. He's just going to
Well,
play
actually,
faster.
now, after rook d8, bishop e6 was made, and the logic is behind it that if black is playing f takes e6, then the rook would have been much better placed on f8, right?
It's a logical idea.
So I have the feeling that black will be taking with the queen on e6.
Interesting.
And but of course, this is a serious question
Very
to
serious,
decide from Magnus'
That's going to
side.
take a little time here.
And then probably knight f5 will be coming.
Because after
and,
queen e6, white can always cement the position with c4, right? And just
Actually, it is a very safe position for white now, I think. And white can be later really go knight h2, put some little pressure on h6. I would be, of course, always thinking about some tactics, which they will do as well. And even once, at one point, c4 is interesting to close the position.
yeah.
So now it is a critical situation.
Critical moment.
And Magnus took with the f-pawn. He did really not like to see the knight on f5, but I think shortly he's going to go back with his
And
rook
look
to
at that,
f8.
an
Knight
immediate d4
d4.
from Sergey. Interesting.
Actually,
Okay,
I have
that the rook is not so badly placed on d8.
And suddenly Karjakin has 56-44.
But still, I have the feeling
the
I would be
computer.
playing with the white pieces also at this point,
This is
because
first
the rook
time
on
it's showing
d8
an advantage.
is not the best place at the moment. I think black will be playing bc, open up the b file at this
Yeah,
point.
queen e6 was safer, but it gave a kind of a bland position that Magnus
Yeah, but
didn't wanna
maybe
go
it's only white who would be playing for a win. It was kind of safer, but maybe Magnus is also not the one who is looking for safety.
Yeah.
He knows that actually it's not the end of the world having f takes e6.
D4.
d4. And of course,
B takes e3 happened. B takes e3, so now the rook on b8 is
Now he's gonna
extremely
take-
well
he's gonna
placed.
take on d4.
C takes d4, C takes d4, and now we'll see whether is he going to take on d4 again, or he's going to play rook b4 possibly.
Makes it
No, he
tries to make
makes it simple. E takes d4,
And
knight takes
again.
d4, knight takes d4,
lots of
bishop
moves.
takes
And now suddenly
d4.
they're blitzing the moves again. Why is this?
Rook b4 is the most logical.
And look at it, the advantage evaporates, right, for white, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like white did something wrong.
But
It's just
actually,
the advantage wasn't really there.
white has a little more pleasant position because black has these e6, d6 pawns, and the king
But I think
is
he could
pretty
have had that
much.
position when he played d4 initially. I don't
The
think.
king is pretty much exposed, so there's still some interesting ways of trying to play it with white. I mean, this e6 pawn is really something can be in trouble once, possibly with queen a2 to make an attack
White
over
play rook
the.
c1 and bishop c3 first, do you think?
Well, probably that will be the move because it is a natural move. Queen d7. Now there is a a4 pawn is attacked.
A4 is attacked, so then...
And well, let's
And
say
then
we
white
can.
plays bishop c3,
Yeah,
it's very
bishop
equal,
c3,
right?
rook a4, bishop a5. But it's
Very slight.
it's kind of very simplified.
Very equalish.
The position, but still the e6 pawn. It's still
But
something.
that's the kind of draw with
Black
with
is
exact-
more vulnerable. But I'm pretty sure Sergei will be playing for some time. I mean, it's kind of a drawish, but still there's possibly a little bit to be
Okay,
pressed.
a little bit, definitely. But in any case, black will play queen c6 or queen d7, right? I guess on like
Well,
some move
now,
like rook d1.
after rook b4, Karjakin is thinking. He's pretty much behind in time, but it's not something he's...
It's not scary now because there's
Yeah.
so few pieces left. It's becoming clear that he will have a very slight advantage, that he can try to just play, see if Magnus plays correctly, and if so, then black will probably have enough to equalize. And
Well, now probably Sergei is thinking about that, whether to play rook c1, ec1 and bishop c3 and exchange the a pawns,
or do something.
or trying to be a little bit more optimistic and keep the bishop on d4, possibly
Well, let's say
go
rook e1, black can probably play queen c4.
Yeah, this can be a little annoying for white if
Yeah.
black would be playing queen c4,
Yeah.
because yeah, but black has to be playing also accurately. I mean, we can easily see a draw shortly, but
But do you think Magnus will keep pushing though, since he's got that time?
Magnus will keep pushing if he has something to push with.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. So
yeah, this game he is not going to be over pushing.
I think if white plays rook c1, which he just did,
He just played rook e6.
then there won't be much to push with. But Magnus should be close enough to a draw, and that's going to give him a slight advantage in the remaining games.
Yes, but generally in a rapid game, usually black can win a game easily too. I mean, there are much
over-
bigger chance in winning with black in rapid game by statistics. There are much bigger chances. Queen d7 we have.
Yeah. And bishop
Bishop
c3.
c3, it seems like both of them will be kind of happy that the first game is so solid, even though it started out pretty interesting.
Yeah, but I think the d4 push immediately took out all the pressure.
Yeah, all the sharpness of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we could have had some.
Well, actually, so far, Sergei during the match, he was better with the black pieces.
Yeah.
Because he wants to give the counterattack, and he really wants to put pressure on Magnus to try to force things.
But do you think Karjakin will be happy
Now
with
rook
the draw here?
a4
Okay.
happened, bishop a5, rook takes a1, rook takes a1, rook a8. So now most likely bishop c3 will be played.
Yeah, this looks.
I mean, that's a kind of logical move to bring the bishop back to the long diagonal.
Yeah.
Though I don't know whether white has something better, because eventually he will have to bring his bishop back anyway.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, things are happening the way we're predicting it.
Yeah, they're not surprising us.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, probably rook takes a1, bishop a1. Yeah.
Badresh is wondering if you think any of them seem more nervous than the other one.
I don't think any of the players are too nervous at this stage. They know, both of them, that there's going to be a draw probably shortly. There's not too much play in the game left, because it's only after queen c6, black is putting pressure over the
I remember the
e4.
last rapid game they played, I guess, was in Berlin, the tournament I mentioned, the World Rapid Championships, and Magnus actually lost with white after having quite a solid opening, but then he overstepped the boundaries, and Sergei was able to get a winning position with black after basically equalizing in the
King
opening.
h2.
There, white played d4 and move 1.
Actually, I have the feeling that Karjakin still wants to press it. No matter for how long, he still somehow would like to show that he's the one who is trying to squeeze Magnus.
Yeah. Yeah, white probably wants to play e5, right? And just try to see if that weak e pawn can mean something.
Well, also possibly in his next move, probably queen a2 is something he would want to play,
Queen
to put
a2.
pressure on the e6 pawn.
But it's close to e5, right? Because black can play d5 almost at will.
Well, if
and-
black plays d5, then probably white would be taking.
Queen d5, yeah.
Queen d5, but still, this e6 pawn is not something black
Well,
can
might
be
as well play
proud of.
e5 and just get it over with.
Well, that would be not fun if
It's
e6 pawn would
too
disappear.
direct.
That would be a long, suffering game for Magnus, but it will not happen. Black will never give away e6 pawn. It's weak, but it's still there at least.
Judith, how happy do you think Karjakin is with the draw in the first game here?
I don't think he's very happy. He just understands and knows, and probably that was his strategy, that he just wants to play the game. He wants to play pretty solid. And if it's a draw, it's a draw. I mean, it's nothing wrong with that from sportive point of view, that in the match he's still in the game. Because, of course, it will be very much difficult if any of the players would be winning a game. Of course, it happens a lot of time that the immediate strike back by the opponent in the next game. But it's, of course, I mean, some people can like it or not dislike it, but draw is a result in chess.
Most common
And
result.
it makes
Yeah.
people happy at least halfway, you know?
So what will be the next move here now, you think, Judith, for Carlsen?
I think it's not so easy for Magnus, because he might go king f7, for example, to just in case to defend the e6 pawn. He knows it exactly that it's definitely not him who is playing for a win. He knows it is roughly equal, but there are still some unpleasant things will be happening. He's also spending some of his time by now. That he has extra time, it doesn't mean anything. He's not going to have a better game because he has double of the time. Because for Sergei to have nearly 9 minutes plus having 10 seconds after every move, it will not give him difficulty at all. I think now he's thinking whether should he play d5 immediately or should he be waiting and keep the position and wait Karjakin to be playing. For example, the question is whether White wants to play f4 to be active. This is, I think, it's a big question whether how will Magnus evaluate it, whether f4 is something would improve White's position or he would just prefer to think that I go for d5, I want to exchange one more move.
I would go for d5, yeah.
D5 is the active move which comes to mind immediately.
You want to clarify these kinds of issues. You don't want this to.
But even
grow
e5 is possible, to be honest.
E5?
E5 is a dangerous move. But on the other hand, well, of course, it becomes
Black
dangerous because of queen.
Maybe.
Because queen a2 and the king will be somehow not so easily put in the right square. And after knight f5, maybe just simply. Well, bishop f8 is not possible. But maybe king f8.
Oh, you're saying e5 for black here?
Yeah.
It's possible.
Well, it's not something you would want to play to allow knight to f5. But on the other hand, if you would play e5, then the a1 bishop would not really have a play. So you're killing one piece and you give opportunity to the other one on f5. And also, of course, the a1,
But
a2,
white to go bishop
J8 is
b2 slowly
sensitive.
to try to bring it into like maybe
a3
a3
later.
to
Yeah.
pressure the d pawn, and I don't know, this looks a little. As black, I would play d5. I would just play d5 and try to say, okay, look, this is obviously draw objectively, and
But also after d5, let's say e5 is also an
but then
alternative.
maybe knight e4.
And then knight e4, and probably I would have to take it.
Yeah.
Because knight h5, knight h5 is also interesting with the idea playing queen g4. But I'm not sure I will have enough activity, because from g4 the queen can attack g7 and e6 at the same time. If knight e4, I don't think white can really put difficulty for black, because I mean,
Pawn on e5 is always
white makes a move, I don't know,
target.
bishop d4 or whatever, queen d5, and it's so stably keeping the position of black. And actually,
But
black
this
played king
Magnus-
f7. He went king
Compact.
f7 just in case.
Become more compact. There's this whole theory of compactness in chess, where you're trying to put your pieces a little bit closer to each other so they protect each other a little bit better.
In other hand, king on f7 can be vulnerable, to be honest. It is not a safety place for the king.
Because now I can try f4 and, right?
Yeah, possibly
Kind of open
f4 is something to try. Ah, no, after f4, actually, we would be blundering, because
F4
queen
is a blunder,
c1
queen
would
A-
be
Queen
something
c1.
that, yeah, and then white
And then
would
we have to take on
to.
f6. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily that bad, but
Well, of course, it
but it's
also
not that good.
happens when we have a short on time that sometimes you make moves in order to allow your opponent to make mistakes. Of course, I have the feeling that f4 will be not played and be blundered this queen c1
How bad is
opportunity.
that? How bad is that? F4 queen c1.
Well, probably not bad, but it's going to be black who takes the initiative because I think we just have to take on f6. And
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
don't want to give up your bishop.
Yeah.
It's not that it's a big problem, but you just simply don't want to give up your bishop. In this position,
something
after
to nothing, right?
bishop d4 and white could have trouble, it would be simply so much of a game for black.
White could play bishop b2, for example, right? Just to
So
keep
probably bishop b2, for example, is a great choice, or bishop d4 maybe also possible.
Do you
It's
think
just that-
both players are trying to squeeze out something here because it is the World Championship? Because the match
Well,
is
they
what
want
it
to
is?
squeeze out something because they are chess players. They always want to squeeze out something, and of course they know they want to create chances. But at this point, it's Sergei who can try to squeeze out
Yeah.
some advantage out of his white. The position for white is a little bit more pleasant. Actually, simply the main reason is because black's king is more vulnerable at this point than white's king.
Yeah.
He's going towards 6.5 minutes now on the clock, Karjakin. And Magnus Carlsen has double the time.
A lot of people have noticed that Karjakin was sneezing there for a little while. They're wondering if Magnus will actually shake his hand afterward or demand him cleaning his hands before doing that. Oh, God bless you, Karjakin. I guess we have to say that.
I think bishop d4 is kind of a good move to centralize the bishop.
Yeah.
I would keep the road for white queen to a2.
a2, yeah.
He went bishop b2, solid as a rock.
But still, on bishop d4, e5, you don't really want to play queen a2 because you're going to lose the... Yeah, so... There you go, Sergey. Good going. Bishop b2.
But doesn't that move reflect Karjakin as a chess player?
Well, absolutely.
Excellent question. Excellent question.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. I mean, he
yes.
covers the
I
square
think that's
c1,
right.
which he doesn't like to be the black queen to be around.
Yeah, this is exactly how Sergey plays chess. Yeah, very solid.
But actually, it's hard for me to believe that he's not going to play d5 eventually. But he's not. He played queen c5. You see,
Five,
controls
covering.
You see, maybe bishop d4 was something to be thinking
Yeah.
of. Actually, I think Magnus is really trying to provoke Sergey playing f4. Be active. Play for a win.
Give me some chances, right? But actually, f4 does not
Well,
look
it's
bad.
possible. It's possible that eventually he's just simply going to play e5, exchange the pawns, and be extremely solid. Or if he plays f4, it means that he's looking for something.
Yeah, the thing is that after, of course, f4, f5, if white plays both of those, then after that, e5 would become quite a good move for black, right?
Yeah, but still, after f5, I mean, I keep going back to this topic that really king on f7. So f4
There we
finally,
go,
Sergey
there we
made this
go,
active
f4.
move. Great.
And now black should wait with
Some signs
special move,
that
like
he wants to win
D8,
this game.
Bishop d8, right? To slowly go bishop b6 and mate on g1, right?
Oh, you're so
That's how
tactical.
I play chess.
What?
I
No,
just-
that's how you play Blitz
That's-
chess.
Well, we're
You wanna
closing
go
in. We're
to
closing in.
bishop
Sergey's
b6
only
and
45
queen
minutes
g1
from 45 seconds from Blitz chess, so bishop d8 is already allowed, I think.
No, actually, bishop d8 is a very tricky move.
Yeah.
And
Bishop d8, bishop b6, and we're nonchalantly threatening mate in 1.
probably after bishop d8, I would go e5. And
Okay,
in bishop b6,
B6.
I would just somehow defend with my queen. f1 maybe.
Okay, there we go. So
But
now-
how will the dynamics of the game change now where we're going into the final phase and Karjakin under 5 and Magnus under 10? How will the game change?
Well, if it gets a little complex, then it will be quite interesting to see. The way you use the advantage in time in blitz or rapid chess is kind of like with a penalty in hockey or soccer. There it goes, bishop d8. But you try to take out a minute from each side, and you keep doing it, and eventually your 6 or 5 minute advantage becomes a huge advantage. Let's say, imagine that this was be 30 seconds to 5 minutes, 30 seconds. That would be a huge advantage for Magnus now, and we'd be already thinking, oh my God, Is Sergey just going to lose on time? Is he going to make a blunder? What's going to happen? For now, he still has 5 minutes to go, so there's still some time. Now maybe he just realized, oh my God, there's a mate going on?
I would be surprised if Sergey would not see this, no? But maybe.
It's possible. It's not, I mean, maneuvers are such things that are, maneuvers in chess are very unintuitive. They're counterintuitive. And this is a maneuver with a bishop to try to mate. Why are maneuvers counterintuitive? Because we play chess as a team, like a team sport. So all our pieces are moving in. If we look at the openings, we want to put our pawns out, knights out, bishops out, queens out. That's a team sport. Everybody's coming out. A maneuver is one piece just doing it on his own, like a Maradona or a Messi going, I'm going to just score this goal. But here, you have a bishop trying to line up to mate, and it's not intuitive. So it's easy to miss a maneuver. Let's see if Sergey, if he reacts quickly, then he's seen it. Right now, he's thought for a minute 25.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
again,
that's a
we
lot of
can
time.
say that actually this bishop d8 is possible, and it's an interesting idea, just because White played the last move f4. So he weakened kind of the diagonal of g1 a7.
And Magnus is immediately he looks for opportunities. He's not giving.
Karjakin is under 4 minutes now.
Under 4 minutes is something, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible he's actually
I mean,
losing his game now?
E5 looks like the best move. I
Absolutely.
agree. And then bishop b6, queen f1, knight d5, pawn takes pawn, something. But there we go.
And
E5
e5.
Yeah.
just happened.
So bishop b6 will be coming, I think, instantly, or at least
And
I would be surprised if not.
I imagine bishop b6. Yes.
The computer is now totally equal. 50-50.
50-50. Anything can happen.
Yeah. Wide open.
But the computer doesn't take
The time. into
the
consideration.
clock in consideration, so
Maybe that should be something that can be
yeah,
improved
yeah.
in that. Because the way I guess it's done is you look at statistics, what happens if you're point 2 pawns up, point 1 pawn up, 2 pawns up, 1 pawn up, and you look at the statistics of the games. If you actually had the data on the clock, then you would also say, well, and
Actually, he took
he
e5.
took first. He wants to clarify how white takes
Yeah.
first. It's an interesting idea.
Oh, I would take f3.
Take the-
No,
Ah, I
bishop
see.
e5. Go
Now
for
bishop
the...
b6 and
Yeah.
some knight move somewhere.
Actually, after bishop b6, I don't even have to go to defend. It's possible that white can go knight e4.
Knight e4 to attack.
Well, it's kind of, yeah, then it would be
Well,
kind
little,
of
you have to time the clock to make
force
sure you're not.
draw. Probably it would be some perpetuate check. That would be the outcome of the story.
So you think this is heading towards a draw?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you know.
Unless there is a huge blunder, it is going to be a draw. It is something, there are simply some positions that you cannot afford losing it. And this is that kind of position that you simply cannot lose
Unless
this.
Magnus tempts Sergey with something interesting. And then Sergey starts looking and saying, well, maybe I can make something of it. And
Well, now
he
actually it's even a
loses.
question whether he's going to play bishop c7, trying to exchange simply the bishops, or to play bishop b6, because he will feel that after bishop b6, queen goes down, defends everything, and the bishop on e5 is actually standing very active.
Yeah.
So
He could
maybe
go
he...
knight d7 maybe.
And with his time advantage, he can afford to do some more thinking, to find something more here.
The 10 seconds is quite a bit of a cushion though. So you don't want to overdo it. You want to have an objective view.
No, I think actually Magnus should not over-push it here. I mean, he should just go for a draw. I think bishop c7 probably is the best move.
Yeah, objectively. Simple and...
I mean, just because after bishop b6 there is a mating threat, it doesn't mean that white has to resign.
No, doesn't mean...
I mean, just have to defend yourself and play actively with the rest of your pieces.
That's true.
Mishmeister General is wondering if the queens are even more important now in such an endgame with quite few pieces on the board.
Well, both queens are kind of okay, and they can be very active, but both sides will be very much looking after the squares which is vulnerable. I mean, here for white is the g1 square, which he has to look after. And for black, actually, it's the h5 square which has to be controlled.
And we got
so
two
white
fast moves.
queen gets activity. Bishop b6 and queen d1.
Yeah.
Yeah, now white queen is actually standing on the, probably we can say the best square. It's, while it's defending the g1 square, it also keeps an eye and opportunity to play queen d7 or queen h5 check. So actually white is next move. If white would be on move, bishop f6 would be the move. Queen d5. Trying to exchange queens. I think he's not going to grab it. He's going to play somewhere queen c1, queen b1.
Queen b1 maybe.
Sam
Or maybe
Thompson
queen
is saying,
c1. I would go queen c1. I wouldn't like to give the e3 square for the bishop.
our friend Sam Thompson is saying that sometimes the best way to lose time on the clock is to have too many good options to choose from.
Well, too
Is
many
that a
good
problem here?
options is something dangerous to deal with sometimes. But this is not the case here.
And Karjakin is going towards 3 minutes.
Would it be disrespectful for Magnus now to just play on the clock, to just try to get Karjakin to?
Actually,
And
white
there's a
simply
draw.
took.
The first game
Yeah.
of the tiebreak ends in a draw. What to say, Judith, about this game?
Well, it seems like it that both players are kind of felt that this was the warming up game for today. And actually, I was expecting a bit more complicated after the opening. And I think also Magnus had it in his mind, but somehow Sergei played some of these good moves. I think bishop c4 was a crucial point where that was a very good move. Keeping the tension, he played very well. But then later on, somehow, instead of making it more complicated or keep the tension in the middle game, he went for simplification that he tries his chances if it's going to be given by Magnus. But actually, if it's a draw, it's a draw. He doesn't
missed
mind.
that the a pawn would be a bit too weak.
But it's very typical. After rook b4, the a4 pawn was kind of typical.
Max and Judith will take a short break, and then we'll talk some more about game number 1 in the tiebreak.